It's officially 7:02, so I'll go ahead and get started. How are you guys doing today? It's a Friday. Everyone have work today and like come off and you do this. Lame. I say as I'm here. This is So You Want to Make a Visual Novel, where we are going to talk about some very basic concepts of to the point where you could literally go home tonight and make something if you wanted to. Maybe not tonight, but like tomorrow. That's what we're going to try to cover. Who the frick am I? I'm Ash Thurman. I am based out of 5 exits south of here. I am a writer, I'm a voice actor, I'm a narrative designer, and I make visual novels. I've done voice acting for indie games. I've done work for Funimation, I've done work for other people. So you know I'm kind of a big deal. I'm not. I'm so not. Whatever, I have Shao Tucker on speed dial and then just like do this. That was stupid, I'm really sorry. I hate the fact this is filmed because now I'm the idiot forever. I have cards up here, so if you forget this, you can just come get them from me later, it's cool. You can find me literally everywhere under Pixels and Pins. I mean literally like Instagram, Twitter, it's all the same. All the same username. Okay, so who has played a visual novel? Who knows, okay, hands up, who knows what a visual novel is? Okay, keep your hands up who's played one. Okay, I figure as much. Who has ever worked on a visual novel in some capacity or another as an artist, writer? Who's reviewed visual novels? Who's done Let's Plays of visual novels? Anybody? Cool. Hey, that counts. It counts. Okay. So for those of you who don't know, a visual novel is basically a choose your own adventure book. But not quite. It's a combination of comics and art and writing and branching narrative and a little bit of RPG sometimes if you really get fancy with it. I mean, sure. What you kind of see in games like Persona and a lot of JRPGs is they use visual novel style storytelling, which kind of comes from the old style graphic adventure games. It's like they're all related. They're like cousins. Does that make sense? Okay, so this part, I hate bending over, it annoys me. Okay, so real fast, this is like the 30-second version of the history of visual novels. I literally have a whole panel I've done on this before, because there's just so much. It's the mid-80s. The Japan and the US are making these crazy, super awesome adventure games. That's when Zork was out, that's when Dragon's Lair was out. And Japan was like, man, we gotta have an edge. And so Koei's like, I wanna make my text adventure game sexy. And like, that's literally what happened. They put out a game where it's literally about banging. Like that's it, that's not the game, that's literally the game. It goes on and on and on and on for a bit. We get into RPGs, but sexy. Rants, which is the game up here, it had its last game this year, or last year. It went for like 15 titles. That's how much people loved it. There's only so long that can work though, so we get things like dating sims, we get things like sound novels. Chunsoft puts out these things called sound novels. The US is like, oh, we're gonna make interactive movies and they're gonna fail at it miserably. We've got graphic adventure games going. There's the Akira adventure game, and there's like Chaos Angels, there's all this like really cool stuff coming out until in 96, we get the first modern visual novel, which has all the elements that we're going to talk about later and would kickstart the genre as a whole. For a long time, Japan just kind of holds on to it. You know, this is pre-torrenting and pre-YouTube and pre-blogs and pre-forums. You know, it obviously would build from there until we get the Nintendo DS and the Sony PSP, which would create a platform in the West to have visual novels on, because they'd be like, oh, okay, well, you're gonna have a DS anyway, we'll give you Hakuoki, Demon of the Fleeting Blossom. Oh, or we'll give you Corpse Party and Dangan Ronpa, and that's when 999 came out, and Ace Attorney and Hotel Dusk. And then they're like, oh wow, Americans will play these. Cool, I guess we'll localize them on the PC. So they do. And now we have visual novels. It's a lot more complicated than that. I ran through that really quickly. And then in 2004, something really, really cool happens, which is the development of the Ren'Py visual novel engine, which is an English language visual novel engine built in Python. That again, you could go home and learn how to use tonight in about an hour, if you really, really, really wanted to. It's on its 7th iteration right now. Ren'Py 7 just came out. It's a great engine, I love it to death. It's awesome. Where are we in time? Oh, I'm just looking already, what the heck? Okay. So, parts of the visual novel. We have the writing, okay? The writing is the most important part of a visual novel because it's a novel. You're reading a book is what it kind of comes down to. I was at Anime Fest last year. I brought some games that I had worked on, I'd made up there. Oh yeah, by the way, I forgot to mention this before. I make visual novels, but I'm a solo developer, which means I do literally everything. I do writing, art, programming, voice acting sometimes if I feel like it. So yeah, it sucks. But you do what you do. But it was really fun because I was up at Anime Fest last year and I brought some games I brought. And people were like, I want to play this. Wait, there's so much reading. And it's like, it's the novel. Like, they're like 12, so you have to give them a little bit of like leeway. But at the same time, it was like, okay, it was a novel, what do you expect? So that's the quintessential part of a visual novel. You could make an interactive game with just writing. And it could be a visual novel, or it could be a drawing game, or it could be a sound novel. That's the important part. It's going to have branching narrative, and that branching narrative is going to be determined by choices typically. Okay. You're going to have art. You're going to have backgrounds, right? You're going to have sprites. You're going to have text boxes. And it'll be very exciting and very visual, and you're going to look at it and be like, oh wow, look at this text box. You know, like this totally blank text box. What could this character be saying? Oh, I don't know. You know, it's very exciting. And those are all your different art elements. You have things called CGs. If you played a visual novel before, you know what those are. Those are special scenes where they're usually Snowgen is the big one. Or it's like a special, super dramatic scene. And like in Hakuoki, the CGs are spoilers for Hakuoki. I don't know if this matters. But like some of the CGs they have are like when the vampires are biting the girl. Like that's the kind of scene that you use a CG for. Things like GUI, which is like save screens and title screens, music and sound effects and all that kind of good jazz. And programming, smoosh it all together. I am actually gonna sit though, because it's a little awkward bending over to do that. All right, cool. So, everyone following so far? We are just like going so fast. I wanna make sure we get everything, so kind of wanted to, yes?
Real quick, what's the difference between a light novel and a visual novel?
Perfect, okay, so a light novel, no, it's brilliant. Okay, so a light novel is a form of Japanese literature. It's like a novella. It's like actual physical, like you can hold it in your grubby little hands and you can read it. A visual novel is more of a, and it's linear, that's the big part. It's a linear version of storytelling. It's you read the beginning to the end. Beginning to end, it's Japanese. Visual novel is a branching narrative. It's like a choose your own adventure book, if you've ever read those before. It's that principle of there's different choices you make along the way and the story changes, and they're digital. You play them on your phone, you play them on your PC, play them on your console, whatever. So it's the difference between a book and a game. So a visual novel is like a gamified book. If that makes sense. All right, cool. All right. So the fun part is you can take all these parts and you can rearrange them in any way, shape, or form that you want, and you're doing it right. It's okay. There are no rules. It's a lawless hellscape. The games here, so top left, that is Heaven Will Be Mine, Blind Date. The bottom one is called Floribond. That one's still in production. The one on the far right is, I can't remember, my notes aren't here. Oops.
Arcana?
It's like Stellarma? Stellama? It's not Ichio. I'll find it later, it'll be fine. So, the writing part of visual novels. So the writing part is the most important part, obviously. Luckily enough, writing a visual novel is literally just like writing anything else. I started visual novels as a writer. I was a published short story writer. I had written a novel that sucked. I've written short stories. I've worked on other games. So as long as it follows the same dramatic structure of any other writing format. So if you're coming in as a writer, you are halfway there. The difference is where a normal story would be like, oh, here's my exposition, here's my rising action, climax, falling action, denouement, denouement. I went halfway through pronouncing it wrong. I was like, oh wait, that's not how you say that word. Lemony Snicket would be so mad at me. The difference is, where a visual novel, where a linear story would have, one pattern of the dramatic structure, a visual novel is going to have multiple versions of that same dramatic structure. There's going to be a point where it's like, oh no, we're going to split, and they have like 7 different climaxes you have to deal with, depending on various and sundry things, however you choose to write it. So we call these routes. And what typically happens is because visual novels have this sort of history with romantic games and dating sims and stuff, routes typically are like, who are you trying to hook up with? Like, they're named after the guy you're going for, or the girl you're going for. Like, oh, this is the Ushicon route, or oh, this is the Mink route, or whatever. Doesn't have to be the case. Of my games, 2 of them don't do that. But it is a really common thing. You don't have to do that with though. Like, what's that? Lawless Hell's game. So, typically this is a common branching pattern of a visual novel. You have something called the main route, and at some point it's gonna go boop, boop, and it's gonna spread apart, depending on various and sundry factors. The different routes may have a good ending and a bad ending. Like, oh, okay, well, I've gotten to the Ushicon route, but now I get to decide if we live happily ever after, or he literally eats me. That's a true thing that happens in the game Dramatical Murder. I am forever scarred. And yet I played every single second of that game. You may have something really cool in the core route where it kind of breaks apart and they come back together. Hakuoki does this. Where it's like, oh, we're gonna go to battle, but whose battlefield are you gonna go to? Are you gonna go to Tokyo's or Hijikata's? And you get to decide, and then it comes back, and it's all great. You may have an ending where you die. You just straight up die. Hustle Cat has that at the very, very beginning. Oh, I love Hustle Cat so much. Oh my god, it's so good. It has cats in it. I'm in it. I'm into it. It came out weird. But yeah, there's an ending where you die like really early. It turned to stone. It's awful. Spoilers. Shoot. Sorry, I may spoil the visual novel because I'll be talking about them, so sorry. You may have an ending that only appears after you've done all the other endings. Hustle Cat has that as well, so does Dramatical Murder has that. A couple things have that. Cool. So, here's the fun part though. This is not what they all have to look like. There's a game called, a friend of mine is working on from Legend X Games. It's called, oh my gosh, she's gonna hate me because I'm blanking. Secrets Untold. And when she initially developed the game, she had 2 romance options, because one romance option you couldn't get to unless you went through another romance. It's a possibility. There's a game I'm in as a voice actor where you keep dying until you make the right choice. And so you come back and you come and you go, oh shit. And then you come back and do it again, it's a little longer, oh shit. And you come back and do it again, oh shit. And you keep, it's horrible.
Like some ReZero shit right there.
Yeah, I mean, that's like, you're not wrong. Like, it's a really fun little game. They made it for Nano last year. It was cool. This is a game I worked on where there is only one ending, but you could die 4 times. There's 4 different places where you could just straight up die. So the game aspect is getting to the end. And that's something you talk about when you're writing, is you think, okay, how am I rewarding the player? Because it is a game, you're trying to reward the player. So typically you're rewarding them with a romance, or you're rewarding them with the end of the story. So that's how I chose to gamify this particular game. You have to get to the end and find out what happens, and it's a happy ending, maybe. It's one of my more eclectic pieces. And then I made a game like this because I hate myself, wherein you were not playing the main character, you were playing the love interest. And you picked at the very beginning who the love interest was, and you got the story 3 different times. So sometimes all the guys would be together, sometimes one would be off somewhere else, sometimes one would be someone doing this, and then one guy would do this, and one of them can't speak the same language, and, you know, it was fun, and it came out really well, actually, so I really can't complain too much. But again, these are all different structures you can use. There's not one right way to do it. Chicken time, we're good, cool. So, how do you get to these choices? So, say you're doing a choose your own adventure novel. You know, you'll have like, if you'd like to cross the bridge, go to page 272. You know, if you'd like to go into the canyon, go to page 374. And so you go across the canyon and go, oh no, this one kills me. And so you go back, you know, and then you go to the right page. And, you know, that's how you play a choose your own adventure book. Where we apply that to something like a visual novel is along the way, a developer is going to put in choices that you can make. You can say, oh, I'm going to go here. I'm going to say this to this person. A lot of times you get a lot of choices that are like, insult him. Don't insult him. You're like, oh, cool. That was an easy choice to make. You know, or it's like, let him touch your hair. Slap his hand. Like, it's like, they're always like, and some are more subtle than others, and it just kind of depends on the different developer and the genre of the game. But along the way, people will make choices. Oh, here I'm going to let him touch my forehead. You know, oh, here I'm going to brush his cheek gently. Here I'm going to kick him in the shins. you know. And then at the end, you know those quizzes we take where it's like, what Harry Potter house are you? And like, it's really just like, if you pick mostly A's, you're a Gryffindor, you know, or you pick mostly B's, you're a Ravenclaw. Same principle, basically, where like a lot of people set it up this way, where they decide, okay, however many green choices you make, that puts you on the green route, and oh, noise is green, so that's the route you're gonna go on. Some people will combine stats with that. Half a Boyfriend does that, Arcade Spirits, which is a brand new game, does that. Monster Prom kind of does that, where it's like, oh, you're on the green route, but guess what, you ain't strong enough, so when the tree falls and like breaks his legs, you can't save him and you die. But if you're strong enough, you can lift the tree and you live and happily ever after. So sometimes there's multiple layers of choices happening. It all depends on what the developer wants to do and how they want to build their game. I typically use one layer of choices because it's easier. I'm lazy. Cool. Oh, I could literally talk about this for a million years and I won't because I'm the only one who's going to find it interesting. But you know, I got to include it. What's really cool about the way visual novels are different than regular novels is you don't have to describe anything because it's all there as a picture. I can just be like, Cora goes to the park and a picture of a park appears. I don't have to describe shit about it because it's right there. And so if you're a really good character writer or you're a really good dialogue writer, oh my god, you're gonna like love this so much. Like seriously, because that's where the focus tends to be on visual novels. They're very interpersonal. A lot of that, again, comes from the dating sim background. Also, in a genre where you can change the plot, you know, you don't want to put a lot of, like, make it complicated, because then it's gonna complicate out and exponentially increase in complication, and that's gonna suck. So you make them very character-driven. You have one basic plot underlay, and then maybe different characters support different parts of that plot, but you're basically character-driving it. What's also really cool is, this is the case for any novel, obviously, the use in tense and perspective. But in, again, a genre where you get to change the story, the way your reader interacts with the text through use of tense and perspective is exponentially more important. It's the difference in being like, I went down to the store, because you know, you're playing as the main character, and you went down to the store, you did this, you did that. And so visual novels will use those things as a way of connecting the reader to the plot. And that's a really cool syntactical thing that I absolutely love, and again, could talk about for a million jillion years. I will not though. If you go play a visual novel though, which you should, because you should, listen, like, pay attention to how they use tense and perspective. I made a game called Naxxus where I purposely made a third person because I didn't want you connecting with the characters. I wanted you to be a god, looking down at the characters and going, you go do that, you go do that. And I was able to use third person to do that. So that's why that's really, really cool. I will not nerd out though. I will allow myself to stop. So sprites is where the first, Ren or Finley? Because Finley's my wife, so you can't have her.
We can't have a nice poly.
I know what, you're right. You're right, we'll be try it, it'll be fun. She can be the hinge. Wow, okay. So a sprite is a two-dimensional bitmap image that is moving across the screen. You know, in Mario, is a little guy, he's like moving across, woo. What we use them for in visual novels, they are the actors in the play that is the visual novel. They are our storytelling cues. You can look at these sprites and you can tell a lot about the story and what's going on just by looking at these sprites. 2 of them are from a Japanese game, 2 of them are from American games, and you know, they're part of our storytelling, our visual storytelling. Yeah, our visual storytelling. Cool.
Who's the girl on your far right?
My far right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's Rin from Fate's Day.
Ah, okay.
Rin. Yeah, that's Rin, and then Tokyo from, is it Tokyo, or it's one of the guys from Hakuoki, I don't remember. And then Finley from Hustle Cat, and then Scott from Monster Prom, who I just got to take him to prom like 2 nights ago. It was great. Took forever. This is a sprite. This is a sprite from the game I'm currently working on called The D Stands for Demon. He's a dragon man. I drew him in Photoshop. You know, like, it's very simple. It's basically you're drawing a picture and you're throwing it into your game engine, which is something we'll talk about later. I probably should have defined that early on, but whatever, it's cool. this is how he was made. This is how I made him. Oh, there he is. Cool. Now here's the fun part. I could take this guy and I could throw him into a game, and you could absolutely fall in love with him, and you could boop the snoot, and it'd be great. Let's say that he had this line. Who wants to tell me how they think that they would act this line were they to see it in this setting based off his facial expressions? Anybody, it's fine. Here, you go. How do you think he would sound?
What are you doing here?
Okay, now what if we make him angry? How does he sound now?
What are you doing here?
Right, so because we are so visual as people, as humans, ironically, that we love nonverbal communication. We love it so much, so that when we see somebody with a bunch of expressions, we look at him and go, oh, he's blushing, he's embarrassed. And we love that. We love it so much. So that's why we include these things called expressions in our visual novels. It is a way of saying, because if you're reading something and it's like, Fakir was so mad, and he's just like, there's a disconnect there. The deal with sprites, though, is, let's say you have a whole bunch of sprites. Then let's say you want to have two outfits. Then you want to make his arms move, and you want to make his nictating membrane move, and you want to make his other set of eyelids move. And then you want to have different poses for different expressions, and then you want to have him to breathe, because you're weird like that. Which is a thing. Like, this game I voice acting it where they're doing that, and it's really cool, and she can do it, and I'm like, I don't know how she does it, because it's like...
the live 2D stuff.
It's live 2D, yeah. It's like fucking incredible. I need to learn how to like do it, because I'm just like, I'm so stimmy.
I don't know if it's a free download, but you can go to
There is a free download available. I don't know if it's like the trial or like the full program. Anyway, but let's say you have all these images and then you have a cast of 6 people. Sprite artwork exponentially increases in complexity sometimes. However, there are tricks to it. For my sprites in this current game, there is an image for the body, an image for the different outfits, and then their heads are different images, and I take them into the engine and go swoosh. And I have 100 different Photoshop macros to make everything easier. So that's the great part about sprites, is there's modularity to the complexity. You don't have to make a sprite blink. You don't have to have you don't have to have a million different expressions. You can just have like 3 or 4. You don't have to do arm movement. I don't do arm movement in my sprites because I don't like it. Lawless hellscape. That being said, or I'm gonna keep moving on a little bit, you don't even have to draw your sprites if you, I forgot about this part. An example of why you don't have to be super complex to still make something good. I made a game in 8 days. These were the sprites, period. Like, they had no other expressions, they had no other movement. I made them in Illustrator in about 4 hours. That game won an award for storytelling. So it doesn't have to be complex to be good. That is something I want to tell you right now. It doesn't have to be complex to be good. What's up?
There's actually games that really have squares.
Yeah, exactly.
It's all based on...
Yeah, Thomas was alone, you know, like I said, complex not necessarily equal good. Keep that in mind. Because I think a lot of people, they get caught up in, I have to make it this, I have to make it complex this, I have to use Unreal Engine 4 for some reason. If we have time to tell them that story, because it was ridiculous. And the thing is, you don't even have to draw your sprites if you don't want to. If you're a modeler, you can make them like in DAZ or 3D Studio, various other 3D studios. You know, you can use photographs. You can do, this is from a game, the second one is from a game on Steam. It's called, some pizza guy. Shoot, I don't have my notes. But you can make photographs. You know, if you're a photographer, that's something you can do. Your sprites can be cutouts from 90s sitcoms. That's from a game called The Senpai, that is literally about Seinfeld. It is amazing. Your visual novel can be pictures of birds. We all love Hatful Boyfriend. I love me some Saki LaBelle. It's fine. It's fine. There's no judgment here.
Sale right now for Valentine's Day. I'm humble.
Probably. There's always a sale going on with that game. I love it. I played every second of it. It's amazing. We're cool. So we talked about sprites. Any questions? We're kind of like moving like really quickly. Any questions, concerns? Want to yell at me? What's that?
What's the most important thing that you find that you have to hit for a sprite
Oh, cool, believable. Okay, so I like cohesion. That's usually the word that I'd like to go for. You want to look like, so like if we go back to here, these sprites look like they belong in the same game, right? Like, oh, God, I hope they do, right? Like, I hope so, right? Okay, cool. Word me for a minute there. So that's why I feel like this sprite is believable. It's something that you want to like, it's something you can emotionally connect to. And I'll show you something later where I think it'll try to change your mind on how sprites can possibly work. As long as it's something you can see and you recognize that, okay, this is this character, and you can connect with it at some kind of emotional level, which is usually helped by the writing. Like How to Fool Boyfriend, they're literally pictures of birds. How do you emotionally connect with a bird? Through the writing. So as long as there's a sort of cohesion between the writing and the sprite to make you be able to relate to that sprite, you're good. Like you could put a red square on the screen and be like, the red square was so alone. He didn't know what was right and what was wrong. You'd be like, damn, me too, red square. Like, you know, like, so that's what it comes down to. Is if your writing can support the sprite work. So we talked about sprites, we're gonna do backgrounds real fast. So another part of your visual storytelling, it establishes your setting, it creates a sense of space. If sprites are your actors, man, there's gonna be a lot of Hatoful in this, because it was the first thing I thought of for like things. I was like, does Hatoful have that? You know what, it does. Screen capture. Also I have like the special edition that has all the art in it, so I can just like pull it from the bottom. Art is super hard, backgrounds are your set piece. And they're super hard, and everyone hates making them. That's like a mood. There's a mood for artists that hate backgrounds. It's a thing. There can be someone who's an amazing character artist, and they have to do a background, and they literally die. So it's okay. You're in good company if you look at a background and go, ugh. It's cool. Middle game, so the one on the left is Have a Boyfriend, middle is from a game called Lake of Voices. That's really good. It's free on Steam from GB Patch. It's amazing. I haven't finished it yet. One of the writers from a game I worked on called Amaranth. Your backgrounds, they give you outside and inside, you know, night and day, inside and outside. I reverse those. Night and day, outside and inside. You know, they're visual shortcuts. If you're really fancy, you can do this. Halt sprite, he's walking across the screen. Oh my, what is he up to? Is he going to go do some business? So, you know, they create a sense of movement. They create an area that your characters feel like they exist in something real. I'm actually gonna put this out real quick. This is from my first game. This is a shitty background. Objectively, like, it's not bad. Like, I've made worse. But for the game, it was not a good background. It did not feel like my characters were like standing outside. It was just like, here's an outside area. And then like, but like it didn't really feel like the characters belonged in that background. I think conversely, my bottom right one, that was a good background for that game, because when my character was standing in the background, she looked like she was standing in her room and wallowing in a weed, because that's what she was doing half that game. So that's how backgrounds work. We're gonna move on from that. Oh God. Cool. This is really fast. So what's really cool about backgrounds is they'll often like shape the way the story works. So let's say you have a game and you're like, oh, these are all the places that this game takes place. And you go, wow, I don't want to make 5 backgrounds. That's too many backgrounds. It doesn't work for me. I'm doing a game jam. I don't have time. So you go, you know what? I know that these have to take place at the main character's house in school. But these don't. I don't need to have an arcade. I don't need to have a bakery. You know, I would only go there one time. That's pointless. So, you know, you make some changes to the story. You go, you know what? This arcade could be the park. Oh, this bakery could be the main character's house. Oh, but if she's gonna be home in that scene, oh, the school scene doesn't make any sense anymore. I wonder if I move the school scene. What would that would, oh, yes, it would totally work and make things make so much more sense. So our use of backgrounds, because they're such an important storytelling element, will often like change the way the story develops. Like if you don't want to make 15, like the game I'm currently working on, I was like, man, where should this one conflict take place? I guess I can make it take place at his house. And I was like, man, then I'd have to draw a house background for him. They're gonna do it at the park. I've already got that background ready to go. Because it didn't matter for that particular, and it actually ended up working out really well in the end. It made more sense when this other events occur. So that's why backgrounds are such a tricky, finicky, wonderful thing that will drive you absolutely bonkers. Oh, so couple different backgrounds. This is from a game. This is from an artist called Odd Laszlo. She's working on a game called Saucy Suitors. It's amazing. It's about anthropomorphized condiments.
Oh my god.
It's amazing. There's sriracha and like mustard and mayo. Oh, she's gonna be so mad talking about her game. I didn't ask her if I could. Oops.
Well, hey, it's
Sorry.
free advertising for her.
I need to work on. I need an alpha for her this weekend. But she has a more traditional background in art. So this is how she constructs her background. Her backgrounds are very intricate and they're really really good. Odd Laszlo on Twitter. I highly recommend you go follow. I have a drafting background. I used to draw airplane parts, so I use Google SketchUp. And I model things in Google SketchUp, and then I drag them into Adobe Illustrator and trace them, and then color them, and these are terrible. These are like alpha versions of old backgrounds, but they were the best examples I had, so I used them. This person actually, this was from a Lemosoft forum, I forgot to write it down. She's Blender. So she just straight up models in Blender, brings it into Photoshop, does adjustments. Lawless hellscape. Because you can do whatever the heck you want. You can just do random model backgrounds. These are really, really popular because they're really easy to make apparently. And they're just like 3D modeled people and 3D modeled backgrounds and like Unity Asset Store stuff. And they make like these like really quick turnaround like dating sims and they're incredible. I'm not gonna pass any more judgments on them in that regard, just that they are incredible. You can paint on photos. This is what I did for a game I worked on because I was running out of time. I was only making it in 2 months and I was like, wow, I backed myself into a corner with backgrounds. I want to paint on photos. Bam, done. You can do really abstract stuff. The top one's from a game called Liar Liar, where as long as the art all looks like it belongs together, do what you want. If you're a really strong photographer, go out and take some pictures. If you're a strong illustrator, go out and illustrate all your stuff. If you're a 3D modeler, go out and model everything. You know, pull it from Maya, your 3ds, or your Blender. The sky's the limit. You can do whatever the heck you want. There's no rules. Okay, so computer graphic. This is the CG. We're gonna go this really fast. CGs are a special image that are usually like there to reward the player. Like, oh, you got to this scene, so we're gonna give you this fight. It's gonna be really cool. If there's a kiss scene, those are usually CGs. If there's an adult game, those scenes are CGs. Nice.
I play games specifically for those. Okay.
I mean, whatever. Man, if you play visual novels and you say if you play visual novels of any sort and you say no, I don't play them for those scenes, you are lying. Like no, you are straight up lying. Admit your faults. We are all in it together. Whatever, it's fun.
Woo,
right. Exactly. Like, so, what's about CGs is so they're really cool, but you don't have to have them in your game. I don't have them in one of my games. A lot of games don't have, like, How to Full Boyfriend doesn't technically have, they sort of have them when they introduce, like, the guys. Dream Daddy has them, like, at the very end, you know, so you don't have to have them, it's cool. They're fun, but you don't gotta have them. These are some really cool CGs. One's from Dream Daddy, as I mentioned it, one's from Dramatic Murder, one's from Lake of Voices, and one is from Saucy Suitors. Those were very dramatic moments. They were, like the ones from Dream Daddy are literally a reward. Like, oh, you dated him, here's your reward. He's shirtless. Like, that's how that works. Aesthetic, so there is some hot contention in the V and Dev community sometimes. Because there is if you make a visual novel, it should be Japanese looking and should use anime art. And then there's people who are like, fuck that, like, why? I'm in the fuck that why category, like, do what you want. But that's still something you can do. Some people, like for Doki Doki Literature Club and for Katawa Shoujo, they purposely wanted to ape the Japanese style art for their games because they were set in Japan and that was the demographic they were going for. That was their choice. And it worked really great for those games. A lot of people choose not to do that because they're like, why should I? And that's exactly how you should feel about it. These are from 2 games called The Lady's Choice, which is set in Victorian England. And then there's one new game, I don't remember the title, she's brand new, she did it for, her name's Hayden Rosen, and she did it, they did it for Global Game Jam. But yeah, so you can just make a choice and go with it. As long as it makes sense for the game you're making, and it makes sense with your backgrounds, it makes sense with your foregrounds, it makes sense with your sprites, you're good. You're good. Because some games, oh yeah, this is the next slide. Because some games will do Japanese, some will do American, some will do something in the middle, some will do this. Lawless Hellscape. These are from, the top one is from Speed Dating for Ghosts. Bottom right one is from Gender Wrecked. And all the art in that is like really, really like eldritch. It's really cool. I like it a lot actually. I need to play it. I haven't yet. Yeah, cool. GUI, yay! GUI is horrible and I hate it. It is the bane of my existence, and I super duper wish I could push a button and it would just look pretty. GUI is your graphical user interface. It's the thing that you interact with a game with. AAA studios have literal whole teams of people who do the UI and the GUI. That's how difficult it can be. And, but it is so, so important to the overall polish of the visual novel, so it's something that Capcom supported at the end. But like, if you look at these two games, the art is good. Like, they're the same quality of art. You know, I have no idea what the games are about. I just pulled them from the database. They looked cool. Sorry, Mike. If you look at the one on the left is like default UI. One on the right has a slightly more polished UI. And so overall, it feels like a more polished, cool game. There's a lot of really cool stuff you can do with UI, especially text boxes. Like, I had a game where they all spoke different languages. So I used the text box to be like, right now they're speaking English, right now they're speaking Elven, right now they're speaking something else. And so there's a lot of really cool stuff you can do with that. You can choose, this is the game I was talking about, you choose different kinds of text boxes you can use, and that changes how you approach the game. You know, typically you're going to see ones where the text box is along the bottom, and then the sprites are on the top and backgrounds in the back, but then you have NVL mode, an NVL style, where the text has a larger screen purchase. You see that in like the Fate games have that, and a lot of the older visual novels have that, because the text had to be bigger because of screen resolution, all that kind of good stuff. And so those kind of change how the game feels. You can also do really cool stuff like this, which I have been seeing a lot more games do, and it's really cool and I really love it. And it makes it feel a lot more like a comic. So GUI is a very persnickety thing that can have a huge effect on the overall feel of your game. So if you've never made a game before, GUI might not be something you ever really want to mess with right away. You might want to use your default one for whatever engine you're using. But it's something, it's kind of an advanced skill that you're going to want to pick up as you go. Because it has such a huge effect on how the game looks. Like, look at these pretty GUI like sets. Like, look how beautiful this game looks. It's great, I love it. This game is a little less pretty, it's mine, so it's cool. I can say that. You know, and this one is very, very pink. And I love it, but it can also be a little difficult to read sometimes. So yeah, it's just how you can like approach the game and make it look like a real game, like oh my god, you know. My roommate is a succubus has a I'm in it as a character named Stacy. And have you guys seen Ancient Magus Bride?
Yes.
You know, have you seen the dub?
No.
Okay. Anyway, in the dub, the gal who plays Chise, Jenny Chambers, she's in this game as Estan, aka Satan, which was fun when I learned that afterward. I was like, oh, I'm in a game with Chise. Cool. It was a very exciting day for me. Sound part, we're gonna blast through this part because it is so weird to talk about, and also it's getting close. Like any game, music is super duper important in visual novels. It is such a highly advanced and like specific skill though, that you don't feel bad if you don't know how to do it. It's cool, people charge so much money. And like I use, for a project I did a long time ago for a audio drama, I had a friend do it for free because I was like, you're my friend, do it for free because you love me. And he did, it was cool. I've never been able to pull that card again. Oops, I used it too early, should have waited. I'm working, there's a gal I'm working with right now, she's trying to get composers for her game, there's a guy charging $600 a minute. Which is a legit price. Like, that is reasonable. They should be charging that much. They work really, really hard. So, there's a lot of royalty-free music out there. You can buy music from people that's pre-made, you can hire composers, but keep in mind that good music, no one's gonna know it's there. Bad music, everyone's gonna know it's there, because it's the fa-fa-fa song, or it's the la-la-la song. There's a game called Kindred Spirits on the Roof, it has 2 songs in it. and it is a 40-hour game, and it's got 2 songs. And so when some friends and I are working on it, working on a project that involved it, we're like, oh, is it the La 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 song or the Beep 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 song? And it was like, it's the La 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 song, cool, great. But then conversely, you've got games like Dramatic Murder, where it has an amazing soundtrack that's done by Goatbed, but that music is so integral to the narrative of that game, if it didn't have good music, it'd be weird. So that's the 2 sides of that, and that's something you just kind of learn as you go. We're gonna kind of blast through that. Sound effects, again, same thing like music. You could have a game with no sound effects and no one would know. Put a glass shatter in the wrong place, everyone will know and complain about it. I purposely, they're a very, very delicate balance, because if you don't have a lot of sound effects, people won't be expecting them. So they'll have their headphones on, they're playing the game, raiding along, and all of a sudden, crash, and they're like, what was that? So very, very delicate balance involved. I like using them for fight scenes, that's a lot of fun. I wrote up a fight scene where I had like sticks clacking. They were practicing, and then when he fell, it was like, boom, boom, and I was so proud of that. It came out so great. And then people would play it and be like, oh yeah, I had the sound off, so I didn't even notice. And I was like, cool. Cool, thanks, friend. So yeah, so that's one of those things you kind of learn. If you have any kind of audio-driven background, you're going to learn about sound effects and their effect on a narrative. Again, an advanced ed skill. That requires more study. If you play, go back and play a visual novel and like pay attention and be like, how's the music sound? How's the sound effect sound? Cool, there's not any. And they'll tell you a lot about like how those have an effect on visual novels. Voice acting. Don't do voice acting in your first game. Do you want to know who did voice acting in their first game? I did. I did voice acting in my first game I ever made, because I was like, well, I'm a voice actor. I'm a professional. I did an audio drama. I've done audio skits. It's not any different for a game. I was wrong. Okay, 4 games later, I am just now doing voice acting again, and it's partial voice acting. Like, you're gonna have, like, I physically cannot do it again. It is too much. That is because voice acting, you have to get a cast. You have to know how to cast people. You have to know how to engineer audio. You have to know how to direct voice actors. You have to trust that the voice actors you're getting know what the heck they're doing. And so unless you're like in the community for a while, and you meet with other people, and you meet casting direct, like AAA game studios don't even do their own voice acting. They get other studios to do them. Like Ruby records in Dallas, at Sound Cadence, Smite and Paladins record at Okratron in Dallas. I could name a couple others, but I can't off the top of my head. Like they outsource that shit because it's so complicated and such specialized knowledge. To give you an idea, Amaranth, first game I ever made, 15,000 words-ish, took an hour to play, 629 individual voice files that I had to go through by myself over the course of about 3 weeks. I had to master them all and split them all, and I died. And then I came back, till I got better, it was fine. A game I worked on recently, I remained Succubus Hellbound to World Domination. There are 2,000 individual voice lines in that game, but I helped split some of them. A lot of work goes into it. I don't recommend it. Get a couple games under your belt first, meet people in the voice acting community, learn how it works, learn from them, and be like, hey, tell me how to do this. I'm gonna hire a casting director and have them do it, because it is so much work. But it comes out really, really cool when it does work. So that's the give and take. A voice acted visual novel sounds really flippin' cool, but you're gonna die making it, so take your pick. Programming part, cool. So we're at the very, very end, where we're gonna talk about, we've talked about assets, and then we have art, and we have music, and we have voice acting, even though I told you not to do it. And we have all this cool stuff. How do we get that all to go together? You're gonna be using something called Game Engine, which is the thing you build your game in. That's things like Ronpa, Unity, Unreal, where's some other ones? Epic has Unreal, I said Unreal already. I'm blanking. Whatever they build Skyrim in, Frostbite or whatever it's called. Something like Frostbite, something Bite, something I've used for 20 years. I had flashbacks all of a sudden. War flashbacks, playing Oblivion. And then you have distribution platform. Distribution platform is like a PC, mobile, or a console. The reason you have to know these things ahead of time is because if you're playing on a PC, your game looks one way. If you're playing a mobile game, it looks another way. And you have to make those assets differently. Usually. Kind of depends. Some people will do it one way and try to port it to phone and then run into a bunch of issues and oh my god, this text is too small, what am I gonna do? You have to know ahead of time what you're gonna do. Is this a game for mobile? Is this a game for PC? Because they play massively differently. And if you're gonna build something for PC and console, they play massively differently. So this, you're not gonna get all this at one time, it's fine. Guess what? You can build something with no programming knowledge. Ronpa is the premier visual novel creation engine. You can go upset, you can go home tonight and have a visual novel made in like 2 hours. It won't be good, but you know, you have it. You'll learn what you're doing. It's free, and it's been around for so long. There is a huge cookbook community. There's all this really cool stuff that you can do. Twine, some of you might have heard before, it's a text that's all text, but you can have images in it. So if you're new to writing, if you want to try interactivity, play with Twine first. You know, Game Maker is weird, like you can use it, we have some special plugins. Channel Builder and Visual Novel Maker are some new kids on the block. They're in their stage of proving themselves. We'll see where it goes. A lot of people make their games in Unity. Dream Daddy was made in Unity. Unity is difficult to make visual novels in, but a lot of people do it. You have to have a special framework. Love 2D is really great for visual novels. Godot and Unreal, all that kind of good stuff. Why you have to pick a good programming engine is because you can do a lot of cool stuff with visual novels after you've moved past that initial phase of, okay, this is how this works. You can do inventory systems, you can do mini games, you can do a thing where you literally build your boyfriend. From the top right corner is from a game called Dr. Frankenfurter's Build a Boyfriend, where you literally build a boyfriend.
Right.
Yeah, it's pretty good, it's pretty good. It's a fun little game, but that's from Pine Rosen. They do a lot of point and click, because they use a combination of Ronpa and Unity. So that's why knowing what engine you're using is going to help you, because for more advanced things, so it's like, oh, you can do this in this engine, oh, you can't do this in this engine. Come on, really? Thanks. Also the time. Then you have distribution platforms. I use Itch.io. Itch.io is amazing. Itch.io is free. You don't have to give them any of your money if you don't want to. I love it. But you can also do Steam, you can also do GOG, you can also do Game Jolt, you can do the Discord store when that becomes available to people. If you're wanting to publish to a console, you have something called a software development kit, which is super special and will require extra work because you have to pass certification, which is a pain in the butt, but you can do it. If that is something you want to do. I wouldn't do it for your first game because they're going to be like, who the fuck are you? You know, but you can do it if you wanted to. That is a very complex thing. And you know, you want to make your game first, see how it goes, and then you can decide where you want to put it. I really do love Itch.io a lot, and I'm really hoping it grows, because it's a great platform. Okay, so before you ever make your very first visual novel, but depending on where you are in your artistic development, you have a lot of options. If you've never written before in your entire life, and you want to make a visual novel, I suggest not starting with a visual novel. Write a short story, write a script, get longer, do a longer story or a longer script. Because here's the thing, it's really easy to start stuff, it's really hard to finish it. Really hard to finish it. You could take a class on how to finish things. Because there's a follow through. And so like maybe you realize, oh man, I don't like writing, shoot. Visual novels may not be for you. So, you know, using something, finding your stepping stones is going to give you a better idea of like, okay, am I capable of doing this? I was a writer for like 10, let's see, when did my first game out? My first game out in 2015. I was a published writer in like 2010 or something. I've been writing for 5 years. I've been a copywriter. I've written, like I said, a terrible book. I am writing for other people. So I knew that I could write a game because I had already had those many years of experience. Okay, I know I can finish it, so let's try it. And then I was like, oh, I like this. I'm gonna keep doing this. Things with sprites. When I first drew my first visual novel, I had like little to no visual, like traditional visual media expertise. I still don't, but I'm better. So, you know, you get better along the way. There's also other things you can try. Like if you like try writing and you're like, wow, I don't like this visual novel idea. There's other stuff out there that you can give a shot to, like audio dramas or text adventures or kinetic novels. Kinetic novels like a visual novel, but there's no choices. You just go play it straight through. They're kind of fun.
They are. There's one I played. I got through a Humble Bundle called Highway Blossom.
Yes.
Gary love story. fucking
That's a really great
fell
one.
in love with that.
That's a really great one. Yeah, I like that one a lot too. There's another one I like called Embrace Curse, which is really great. I'm blanking on other ones right now. But yeah, they're fun. So if you like, if you're not ready to try a visual novel, you can try something else. And those are kind of corollary skills, and you can push yourself and, jump over when you need to. And so, okay, this is really, really fast. I want to show you exactly what it looks like to plan a visual novel. This is a game I never finished. I got halfway through the top route and went, wow, this is boring. No one's gonna play this, and I stopped. I put so much time into that game, and I never finished it. I put a demo out, it was cool. It was about a bunch of gay guys in a fantasy world, and there was like lizard people, it's great. They weren't all gay, one was bi, it's very important I make that distinction. Yeah, so that is what a game can look like. This was for a section of the game I ran called Heart Connection, where I was like, okay, I gotta do a dialogue tree. Shit, okay, cool. This is what it's gonna look like, so it's gonna make different choices along the way. This is what my Trello board looks like for my current game. This is all the stuff I still have to do for a game I'm planning on putting out in the summer. Because planning and organizing and flowcharts, if you are not the kind of writer who uses outlines and you want to make a visual novel, you will become the kind of writer who makes outlines, because you cannot keep track of that without flowcharts and outlines. And so you learn a lot of these things on the way. You learn to be better organized, you learn to build flowcharts, you learn to build to-do lists and how to move stuff around. But that is something an essential skill you're gonna need to start making a visual novel, because it's such it can be so complex, especially if you have a cast of 6 and they have 7 different expressions and 2 different outfits. Okay, and then they have 3 different scenes, there's a good ending and a bad ending, and did I record with that actor yet today? I did not record, I paid that actor yet? Okay, did I? Oh shit, no I didn't, crap. Okay, I'll do it later, Like there's so much stuff that goes on, especially if you're doing it by yourself, like I do. Cool, we're at the very end. Awesome, I was making sure I was keeping the time right. These are my 4 big things to start if you want to start a visual novel. Start small. Not every single project has to be your magnum opus. It just doesn't. Like you can do something tiny with 2 routes, you're good to go. Big and complex, not necessarily equal good. I said that before, know your limitations. If you are a terrible, terrible artist, but you're an amazing writer, make a visual novel with no art. Or just backgrounds. Like, there again, lawless hellscape. Play to your strengths. If you're a great writer, man, then you just push that. Push that shit, be a good writer, make it work for you. Cool, I'm having, this is my website. I am gonna have this, I'm gonna have this PowerPoint up on my website eventually, probably this weekend. But what I also have there is, because Nano is starting soon, is we're gonna have a bunch of resources. I'm gonna try to all those engines I listed are gonna be up on there, all those distribution platforms. I need to get ready for the next panel. It's a swap meet, so any questions we'll do them really, really fast. I'm gonna go ahead and, as I pack up. So yes.
For copyrighting your work, do you copyright the characters or the entire work?
Oh, that's a very complicated question. So my understanding of copyright law, which is limited, is typically, as long as you make it, it's copyrighted. Like there isn't really a special process you have to go through. You make it, you put a CC on it, bam, it's copyrighted. So when you get into more complex game development, that's a lot more complex copyright law that goes with that. But at the indie scale, you don't have to deal with it quite as much. I would do some little research on that. If there's a specific question you have, I'd just Google it. Anything else?
You said you had cards?
I have cards, yes, you can come get them from me. Would you like? Is that it? Okay, cool. All right, guys, next panel is going to come in a sec.